Hi there, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Huddle podcast. If you're noticing, it's just me. There's no LeeAnn here. LeeAnn is off this week. She's on vacation, so hopefully she's getting some rest, as much relaxation as possible. So you just got me, but we have a ton to talk about. So first of all, we're going to get to a couple of the Steeler snippets, and when the Steeler snippets come on, that means we're going to start playing stuff. Okay. So the first thing is John Smith. Uh, uh John Smith kind of caused some friction in my family. We have Dolphin fans scattered all over my family, especially in the family chat. And the thought of losing John Smith, that did not sit well with them. But aside from that, not only do we not need him, it's unlikely now. Although I will say, right before I jumped on, I did see another report come out that now it is a possibility again that John Smith should come in and I understand some of the logic behind it. John Smith, he has been successful with Arthur Smith in the past, and he is consistent. I will say that, but it's the wrong thing. If John Smith was at the caliber he is in a wide receiver, I would say, yeah, that would be great. To me, that would be a great wide receiver too. But we don't even know how to use the tight ends that we have. We're going to get to Darnell Washington in a little bit. But right now, we legitimately have no idea how to use tight ends, or at least we haven't shown that we know how to yet. If we do, it hasn't been put into implementation. So that's what I can say about John Smith. It's unnecessary, and I hope it goes back to unlikely because there's other things that we're going to get to. But John Smith actually takes us. Most of the things we're going to talk about tonight takes us to the main point, which is there is there actually a missing piece for the 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers? Is there that one guy, that one player, that one superstar that if he were to just come to Pittsburgh, it would be nothing but success. It would be Super Bowl caliber contender. And I'm going to tell you, if you decide that you don't want to tune in for the entire show and you just want a nice quick summary and you'll tune in later, you already kind of know where I'm going with this. I've said it before. I don't believe the Steelers are that one person away, but I didn't just want to say it tonight. I wanted to dive into not only why, but who are not the missing pieces, or if there is a missing piece, what is it the missing piece to, and who are those players? So those are the kind of things we're going to look at. John Smith, right off the bat, not a missing piece. He's not a missing piece for the Steelers, and I believe because of the excellent season. He hit the best season of his career in Miami last season. So he's not going to come to Pittsburgh cheap. That's just not how that's going to happen. So we would be paying something for a position we haven't proven that we know how to use yet. So it's the wrong direction, not the right piece. So right off the bat, no to John Smith. At least that's what I think. Next is this does not include Aaron Rodgers, by the way. It's the Kirk Cousins and other various veteran quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, I don't know why. I genuinely feel it's journalistic boredom. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I mean that in a natural, this point of the offseason way. It's right around the corner from when there's legitimate news again, when there's legitimate stuff to write about that is actually impactful and actually means something instead of football in shorts and talking about who is and who isn't in certain places at what time. That's what Kirk Cousins is right now. And this, you could have seen this coming a mile away the second the Atlanta Falcons confused the fuck out of everybody by deciding that they were going to select Michael Penix Jr. right after the millions about all that money that they gave Kirk Cousins. Well, not just millions. You understand what I mean. But not just Kirk Cousins. It's Matthew Stafford. I trying to think who else I've seen connected to it. Geno Smith was there for a bit before he was signed. So there's all these veteran quarterbacks that are being linked to us, and none of them would have been cheap. I mean, got Matthew Stafford. Can you imagine the cost that Matthew Stafford would have commanded if he would have come to Pittsburgh? Which, by the way, I am a huge Matthew Stafford guy. Like ever since he was in Georgia when he first came to the Lions, I'm a Matthew Stafford guy, but no, it's back to the point that you guys are. I hope you don't get too sick of it, but you're most likely going to get sick of hearing it by the time I'm done with it. It's not the missing piece. Not only is it not the missing piece, definitely not in the right realm of where we should be looking for that, because if the missing piece was at quarterback, he would have been signed or drafted a bit ago. So, but I'm jumping so many guns at that point. So let's go to the Aaron Rodgers, because I'm not going to talk about him a lot. We did most of our Aaron Rodgers talk last week, and I'm glad we got that out of the way. So Aaron Rodgers' arrival is still with that big TBD. Mark Caboli, who I keep referring to in specificity to Aaron Rodgers, not just because of Mark Caboli's consistent interaction within the Steelers at close proximity, but also because of Pat McAfee's show. And Aaron Rodgers has the relationship with Pat McAfee. There's a lot of strings attached there. And he specifically said on the last show they did, I'm pretty sure it was Monday. I want to say it's Monday or Friday. No, Friday. That it would be 7 days. So we have until this Friday until someone with legitimate knowledge of the situation from multiple angles said, not just, oh, he might said that he will be a Pittsburgh Steeler. That so be happy, be sad, whatever you will be about that. But that's a certainty that's going on with this specific thing, and yet he's not here. So we're only going to talk about this in reference to the theme of the evening, which is the missing piece, and it's Aaron Rodgers at this point, the missing piece, and that's the problem. I always have to make that clarification. It's at this point. I understand what he did. I really, really, really do. And I understand what he did against us. And there's another guy we're going to talk about later who I think what he did against us in certain games impacts how we're seeing him. I hate Aaron Rodgers, specifically for the reason that my rule is that if you beat the Steelers in a Super Bowl, I have to hate you from that point on until you retire. Troy Aikman, every single Cowboy, hated them. I really, really did not like any of the Green Bay Packers, all of that. So that's just a rule. But he's not the missing piece. He's not that guy who's going to take them somewhere else. My whiteboard isn't behind me with my magnets of the teams and the wins and losses. But even with Aaron Rodgers, what the ceiling at best, if he plays the full season, is 10-7. It's a really good AFC this year. That's not going to make the playoffs. So no, Aaron Rodgers, it's not. That's not. Well, not only is it not what we're looking for, Aaron Rodgers, when he gets here, he's not going to move the needle to the extent people think he is, and we'll get to many of the reasons why, kind of secondhand, kind of by proxy with other people as we move along. Now, this is the fun part. Done with the Rodgers. We're off of that. It's OTAs. It's the second week of OTAs. Football in shorts, but that means we're another week closer to when it starts to matter, to when we can start to not just guesstimate, but look at something and say, hey, that looks good. And we're going to see a video right now. And I'm pretty sure it's 93.7 or Alan Saunders that took this. So big. I'm really excited for this. They were talking about Mount Washington. And there was a couple conflicting tweets out there that he had both slimmed down and looked bigger. So if he managed to do both of those, that's even more impressive. But this is just Darnell Washington, Steelers tight end number 80, going up against a blocking sled who stands no chance against him. So let's see Darnell Washington do that. Good deal. Rolling off the ball. That's it. That's a very, very big man moving a big piece of machinery like it is nothing. I've seen a lot about Darnell Washington today. Um, and I've seen videos other than that one about how he's moving, how swift he looks, and that is all great. That's well and good, but I have to take every bit of that with a grain of salt for two reasons. Number one is related to Darnell Washington because we haven't shown we know how to use him. We had one play all of last season that looked like we knew how to use him, and that was the touchdown. I think it was out to the left flat near the goal line, which we should have done a lot more. But the second reason I would trust is fucking Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett forever ruined any chance I had at living in the denial of off-season or preseason football. I simply can't because of that near perfect preseason. And if you haven't seen it, I went into extreme depth in the last podcast I was on, um, explaining why we should have seen the Kenny Pickett debacle coming because of what that near perfect one actually was. But when it comes to the OTAs, it's more fun than anything. I look for two things. I look for who shows up and how hard they're working when they're there. That's it. That's the only two things you can ask because yeah, I was watching Patrick Queen give an interview today, and he specifically said that at this point, you're not in football shape. You're in shape. You're in better shape than me, better shape than a lot of us, but you're not in football shape. You're not in game day shape. If they ask you to go out, you'll probably get your ass kicked. So a lot of this is just getting to the point where then when they ask you to start implementing the actual football of it, you're in that kind of shape to start doing that. So that's what the OTAs are for. We're going to be looking at some quotes. Minka Fitzpatrick was very talkative today, and he had a lot of good quotes that I really, really enjoyed. So we're going to jump to that. I'm hoping this is going to be a new little segment for the OTAs. Some quotes here. So the first one he was talking about Darius Slay, and Darius Slay is a veteran. I think this is what his 12th or 13th year, something like that, and he's shown up, I think, every single day. And he said specifically, we went over this last week, mainland, that the reason he is here is because he recognizes the importance of OTAs and the specific time of the offseason to building that type of football that could become something more. And let's all be very honest, as we'll see in summary of what we're covering here. If the Steelers intend to find any kind of success above making the playoffs or a playoff win at the height of that, it's going to be in a kind of a Cinderella story fashion. And this is where you build the kind of a team that can achieve that. Aaron Rodgers not being here, big little asterisks there that you can kind of put there. But this is what Minka Fitzpatrick said specifically about Darius Slay Jr. And we're going to talk about how he ended this and why it's so important. He said, a guy like that is extremely valuable. He's covering the side of the field. When you have him in man to man or even in zone, you know it's solid over there and there's no leaning to one guy, especially when you have Joey Porter on Jr. on the other side. There's no real concerns out there. You know he's going to be in the right position. You know he's going to do his job at a high level. You can just play ball. It's the end part to me that sticks out because I think it was, I don't know if it was the last podcast I was on or when I was a guest a little bit ago. I was talking about why Minka, a lot of people said he struggled. I don't think Minka struggled last year, but a lot of people do. And it's because he wasn't used in the way a lot of people are used to Minka being used. He was used more as a lifeguard, more as a last bastion back there to make sure nothing got past him rather than letting Minka be Minka and playing some Minka ball. That's what I'm reading when I look at this. Is that you can just play ball. There's a relief that I'm reading in that. Excuse me for 1 second. There's a relief in that he doesn't have to be concerned about who is where because it feels like he's not taking a dig at anyone in specific, but maybe Dante Jackson needed more on the field coaching than we knew last year. Or maybe Beanie Bishop or Corey Trice, whenever he came back, these young guys really needed a lot more on the field coaching and maybe handholding to a certain extent, which meant Minka was a bit handcuffed. and he couldn't stray to the extent that he was able to. Like the defenses Troy Polamalu played on, shout out to Troy, were ones where it allowed him to do what Troy did. Because if he did that, he knew he had Chris Hope back there, or he had Ryan Clark back there, and they were going to make up for whatever craziness Troy decided to do at that moment. And Minka didn't have that last year. What this sounds like is that between Joey Porter, between Darius Slay, that Minka feels a little better about this. And hopefully this isn't just Minka saying things, that this means that the defensive coordinator's been talking to him specifically about being able to play his style of ball. That would be genuinely exciting to me. I would really hope that that's what's going to happen. So, but this is just the first quote from Minka. We're going to see some other ones here. I think it is the longest one, but is that you can just play a ball. That's going to stick in my head until proven otherwise. I kind of feel like we're going to get a different version of Minka Fitzpatrick. I think a lot of people, and I'm not calling anybody out. I need to make this very, very clear, because there have been people I've been on other podcasts with who've said this. I'm not calling anybody out, just differing opinions. I think Minka's going to prove why he's paid what he's paid. And I think he's going to prove why that next contract should be one that we should give him, that maybe shouldn't, break every bank, but definitely should be worth it. So we're going to jump ahead now and see what else we have to talk about with Minka. A big issue last season, and I feel like not just last season, but the last few seasons, has been defensive communication. But goodness, it got bad last year. The amount of games I would watch back afterwards, and I would see guys pointing in random directions, or you could hear them yelling that they had no idea what was going on, or the offense consistently knew what the defense was going to do. There were so many frustrating reasons why the defensive communication wasn't good last season. And you kept wanting it to be, and you kept wondering why, with all of the veterans that we had on the defensive side of the football, why wasn't that communication there? And we talked a little bit before about Minka having to handhold the Beanie Bishops and the Dante Jacksons and the Corey Trices a bit more. So that meant that he had to try and over communicate to guys who didn't fully understand maybe what they were doing, to the extent, hey, honey, how are you doing? And so this is what Minka Fitzpatrick specifically said about the defensive communication in 2025 and what they were implementing in OTAs, which is the most important part of it. This is not a training camp thing. This is not we're going to put it in right before the season. These are OTAs. These are not all mandatory. So this is so important for the guys that are here, really want to be here, and they're implementing this kind of stuff. The 2025 defensive mantra is leave no gray. That has nothing to do with hair coloring. Aha. It has to do with this. It should just be. This is how we're doing it. This is how we're going to communicate. If I give you a thumbs up, you give me a thumbs up back. If I give you a thumbs down, you give me a thumbs down back. It's as simple as that. Really pressing down and instilling that in everybody. That's genuinely exciting to me, because the worst possible thing that this defense could do is make things more complicated. And as strange as it sounds, a lot of teams kind of go that way. They're like, okay, well, that didn't work. Well, maybe if we implement this defense, it changes that. No, do what you're doing. Just simplify the communication on the field. And right there, granted, it's most likely not just going to be as simplistic as a bunch of thumbs up and thumbs down on the field. They'll have different signals. They'll have different names that they can shout at, different signs, all that kind of stuff. But to a football player who's a veteran and knows what he's doing and has studied, it could be as simplistic as this. And most of these quotes are from 93.7 The Fan, so shout out to that. But the leave no gray is really exciting. These are some fun ones. The reason I put these together is I keep wanting to subtly call out Rodgers, and it just happens to be there, the fact that he's not an OTAs, despite the fact he wants to build a winning team. So Minka Fitzpatrick hasn't missed a single day of OTAs. This is a well-played first-round pick that is a veteran. He doesn't have. If he wasn't here, nobody would be on his case for it. And yet he hasn't missed a single day, and he was asked about that today. Because we're working. At the end of the day, what gets you to be a better football player is playing football. It's hard to simulate that. Whether you're in Florida, Vegas, California, right now, we are playing football. So I don't know what specific people are in those three places, or maybe in just one of them, but someone got called the fuck out right there. And I think that's really funny because if you watch back, I don't even think I saw a smirk there. So just a deadpan call out of someone there. And then we'll transition really quick to the next part because there's still quite a bit to get through. He was asked about Aaron Rodgers, which of course everyone did. And his response was really simple. His response was, I play defense. That's it. It's not his place to comment. And that is the best mindset that this team can have. Right now, that is not our place. Ask about Aaron Rodgers. I play my position. Mason Rule, I've asked about Aaron Rodgers. Not sure, haven't talked about him, but boy, the guys here are really fun. When the wide receivers are asked about Aaron Rodgers, I'm not really sure, but goodness, Mason, Will Howard, and Skylar Thompson are throwing that football really well. Goodness, those offensive linemen are blocking well. I'm seeing a group of people that, and I'm saying what I see. This has nothing to do with what's going on. But I see some people who don't really care that Aaron Rodgers isn't there. And that's the attitude it is. And the thing that makes this all the more interesting, and if you like the drama, then dramatic, is every day this goes on, the camaraderie is being built in a non-mandatory setting where pretty much almost everyone has shown up, except for, we'll get to the TJ why he's not there and all that. But just completely lost my train of thought on that one. So we're going to have to skip that. I'm barely the universe decided I wasn't supposed to finish that one. But the entire point is that the camaraderie at this point, the camaraderie at this point is being built up to such an extent that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be able to just walk in the saloon doors and say, okay, I'm here now. It's going to cause more friction every day he's gone. And I even heard on Kaboli and Mac that normally staunch defenders of him are starting to say, I don't understand this. Okay, it's gone on long enough. People are turning their back on the Aaron Rodgers of it all. It's perplexing because there's no reason for it whatsoever, other than, I mean, even pure ego seems like minuscule in the face of what's going on right now, because everyone and their mother and their mom are talking about this right now. So of course Aaron Rodgers knows about it, no matter how dark the cave he's currently in. So it's not for me to answer. And I said I wouldn't talk about Aaron Rodgers too much. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the next part here. The wide receiver position is a very big talked about situation in Pittsburgh, and for good reason. That everyone was really excited about pairing up George Pickens with DK Metcalf. And I understand why people are upset about that. But goodness, did DK Metcalf move that needle? It's not just money wise, it's not just talent wise, it's not just that. It's the fact that he's coachable on top of all of that, which to me is one of the most important things. But people keep talking about this wide receiver 2 spot. And at this point, to me at least, if we haven't got a wide receiver 2 that is a bona fide 100%, you're going to walk in here and be a wide receiver 2 without really earning it, we're not going to get one. And the first reason that we talked about a little bit before is that right now, as humbling as it might be, Pittsburgh is not the most attractive place for a lot of high-priced free agents to play. Me and LeeAnn talked about it before. We did agree it was a little surprising to both of us that DK Metcalf decided to come here. And it was even more surprising the amount of money they were willing to pay. But we're going to talk about Gabe Davis now. And I saw a lot of people get really excited and talk about Gabe Davis coming in and putting him in the depth chart and saying, look at what this looks like, look at the upgrades. So I want to talk about why it's not. I want to talk about why Gabe Davis is not the upgrade people think he is, and why if Gabe Davis came in and signed, which he might, there's a very, very good chance of that, which is why I wanted to do this specific dive. He's coming in for a visit tomorrow. And a free agent visit in Pittsburgh for a position like a wide receiver and someone like Gabe Davis, who has been connected to the team before, that's not nothing. So let's take a look at Gabe Davis and why I don't think First of all, Gabe Davis wasn't just released. He was released with an injury designation, which meant they did not consider him healthy enough to continue playing for them. That's a thing. Teams don't just do that willy-nilly. They don't just throw that term around, especially with Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis was brought there to be a number one wide receiver. And it, when that happens, he started 9 games, played in 10, which was the lowest amount of his entire career. And so, just right off the bat, a lot of people are already upset at Omar Khan for ignoring, quote unquote, ignoring some injury red flags in drafts and all that. So, the excitement over Gabe Davis, considering it wasn't a bit ago that he had the injury. His tore his meniscus in November. From someone who I didn't tear it, I just put a slight like dent in mine. It takes a bit to come back from, and I've come back from an ACL tear too. So a meniscus tear is not a small thing, especially for a wide receiver. Now he is only about 26, 27. So there is the chance that that second act could be something else, but that's too much hope for me, and we'll continue talking about why. Yeah, I know. It is dangerous. Oh my! It is exactly how I would put that. But let's not all be down on Gabe Davis. Let's talk about why Gabe Davis could be a good fit for the Steelers. Unfortunately, that reason is only because he's incredibly low risk. If anybody remembers, which you should, the Russell Wilson saga that occurred where Denver wanted him gone so badly, they paid every bit of his contract, and all the Steelers had to do was pay like $1 million and some dollars to him. Because for every year that you're in the NFL, there's a different veteran minimum that you have to be paid. And we'll get like Gabe Davis is right now. He's in his fifth or sixth year, and that is $1.17 million is his veteran minimum. I think Russell Wilson's was like 1.3 or 4, something like that. If I'm wrong, I'll definitely correct me on that. But the discrepancy isn't big enough for it to be a legitimate argument. So Russell Wilson cost the Steelers pretty much in NFL terms nothing. There was no risk there. It was a 1-year deal for pretty much nothing. If Gabe Davis comes in, most likely it'll be the exact same thing unless he comes in and the Steelers are like, wait a second, the Jaguars lied about this meniscus thing. You're actually Superman, and they sign him to a bigger deal. That would be the only reason that I can't see a 1-year veteran minimum deal happening. So you're talking about a guy who just a year and a half ago was brought into the Jacksonville Jaguars to be one of their number one or at least 1A, 1B wide receivers, who is now just on the free agent market, was brought into the Giants, and he has a connection to Giants head coach Brian Dable. Did not get signed there. So this is a very low risk. It's a kind of medium reward. And the reason is, how much does the quarterback define what Gabe Davis does? And I think a great deal. Gabe Davis, as we'll see right here, if you can follow along right here, if anybody needs to look at these stats here, when he was with the Buffalo Bills, with Josh Allen, MVP of last year, as his quarterback, and as much as I do not like Josh Allen, and I do not like Josh Allen at all, like really at all, he's a very good quarterback, and he's a hell of a football player. And if he was in black and gold, I would most likely be very proud to have him lead that football team. That's what I feel about Josh. It's a dichotomy of feelings. But under with Josh Allen and the Bills, he averaged 682 and a half yards per season. I hate Josh Allen because when he beats the Steelers, really quick. And he asked, well, how come? I'm guessing that was about why I hate Josh Allen so much. And is not. When Josh Allen beats the Steelers, there's this look of extra glee on his face, and I never appreciated that. Plus, I didn't. The way that we were beat in the playoffs to him, he was just romping. Literally, he was romping at a certain point. The frustration with that. So it's all a respect because he beat us and all that. So that's why I don't like Josh Allen. Relic, welcome to the show. The, okay, I mean, we'll agree to disagree on this. And the only if we had a healthy Gabe Davis, who other teams had taken a look at and didn't say, nah, this guy's too banged up to even bring in for $1 million. Because at that point, other teams like the Giants and I think the Raiders or someone else brought him in and said no. That I can't see him as that big of a step up. Now, you want to quantify step up because I could give you like a little step up, like maybe like a really small step stool that you get at Dollar Tree. You know, Van Jefferson would be on the bottom of that and Gabe Davis would be at the top. I can probably give you that. But with Josh Allen, he averaged about 682 yards a season and 7 touchdowns per season. It was 7 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns. That's consistent as fuck. That really, really is. Josh Allen is consistent as fuck though. Because the second he left Josh Allen, not only, I mean, you can say the meniscus tear and all that, but even before that, 239 yards and 2 touchdowns, 10 games played. That's a bad drop. And I think that's what we saw with with Cam Sutton. When Cam Sutton went to Detroit and they say, oh, look, you can be our starting cornerback. And then he played and they're like, oh, God damn it. No, you can't be our starting cornerback. They brought Gabe Davis in. They were like, hey, you can be one of our number 1 guys. And he played a bit and they were like, God, shit, you can't be one of our number 1 guys. So let's see what Relic says. I don't know. I'm comfortable with Calvin Austin being a number 2. Oh, I am so happy that you brought that up because I am more on board with this wide receiver room the more I think about it. And I don't think I'm Stockholm Syndrome talking myself into this. I really don't think I am just because of how much the Steelers front office is saying we're comfortable with the wide receiver room. We're comfortable with the wide receiver room. Excuse me for a second. Oh, Relic, just for a second, because it's only a second, Relic, because you missed this at the beginning. If you didn't see this, I'm going to play a beautiful a video of Darnell Washington moving a blocking sled like there was no blocking sled.
There we go. Good deal. Rolling off the ball. That's it. Look like we
And he moves. He does move like a wide receiver. Darnell Washington is said to have lost between 10 to 15 pounds. And it's kind of different from when people lose 10 to 15 pounds. I think it's a little more random when people do it. When football players do it, it's intentional from specific parts of the body that they lose it. I remember when Chad Johnson was training, he said he would have like specific days and all this where different parts of the body were worked on. So he would only lose a certain amount of muscle from this, certain amount of muscle from that to make sure he was as fast as possible. It's a whole thing. But I'm really excited to see where this wide receiver group does. I agree. Calvin Austin, it's the jump that Calvin Austin made from we're not really sure he didn't have too much or any, if my memory is correct, of his first season, and then he really stepped up last season. I think it was the fact that our offense was just bad and has been bad for a little bit that we get lost comparing what our wide receivers do to what other wide receivers do instead of saying, well, if we can have our offense and we do a little equation to make it comparable to other offenses, Calvin Austin actually had a pretty damn good year. Now it's the other guys that I wish would have stepped up more outside of George Pickens. But I will absolutely do Relic a favor. What can I do for Relic since I was just asked to do a favor? As I'm about to launch into the opposite of what he said to open his comments today. And while we're the opposite of the comment, for the record, is the bottom thing that I said there, which was I really don't see Gabe Davis, and I have to be specific, this version of Gabe Davis as any different than the Robert Woods or the Ben Jeffersons or the Allen Robinsons. Um, and I'll get into that in 1 second because it's a whole thing, but I want to touch on what Relic. Um, Antonio, but that is, if anybody hasn't seen Antonio Brown's first touchdown ever, that is a genuine thing of beauty. And Calvin Austin is a big now. The more you talk about Calvin Austin, though, the more in the back of my brain, a little guy runs out with a big sign that says, "Why the fuck is Patterson still on the team?" So I, as happy as I am about Calvin Austin and about imagining that specific play with him involved, I get so mad that for some reason Cordell Patterson is still on this football team. Is it? I didn't see anything. I looked. I couldn't see a June 1st reason. I couldn't see any legitimate financial. We have $40 million in space. We don't need to worry if we have to, cut a little bit from him. It's genuinely frustrating that he's still on the team. But we'll finish up with the Gabe Davis part of it. The problem. Relic's jumping in and says what. Yeah, we'll all put our tinfoil hats on. The CPAT has something on Tomlin. That's why he has something on Tomlin or someone in the front office. Or maybe CPAT is the cousin of someone that works in the upper. Who knows? Well, I'm not sure why about that. But last season, a lot of people said, me included, that what we had was George Pickens and a bunch of other guys. Now, Calvin Austin had a great jump, but if you compare to a lot of other depth in the NFL, that's what you have. You bring on Gabe Davis, I don't think a lot of that changes. I think what you have is, and if I really apologize for the people that are big George Pickens people still, despite the fact that he's just constantly shitting on us from Dallas. I think DK Metcalf in many ways is a step up from George Pickens. The production and the consistency, I think, is going to be there. Not just the big plays, but the ability to be there consistently, regardless of how the game is going, which I think kind of dictated how George Pickens played a lot of the time. But the fact that even though he wasn't there, I think today DK Metcalf was at the first weeks of part of the first week of OTAs, and he's an exemplary kind of wide receiver veteran that you want there for these younger guys. So, hey, it's my one. Look at this crowd here. Thank you for showing up. Show was refreshing. How was Rhode Island? My mom's in Rhode Island right now, and Florida is hot 1 second, and then all of a sudden it's cold, and then all of a sudden it's raining, and all of a sudden there's just fiery pieces of hail falling from the sky. So that's what it's like there. The Relic jumps in and said, Gabe Davis, Van Jefferson, Allen Robinson, Robert Woods, none of that matters. We won't throw over the middle. So it won't matter. That's a big reason when we at the top of the show, I opened up talking about the Jonnu Smith situation. And I said that while he's talented and he's definitely a pass catcher, we can use other pass catchers. We have proven so far completely inept at knowing how to use tight ends. And it's incredibly frustrating because at this point, a lot of people are down on Pat Freiermuth. And I'm frustrated with Pat, but I don't want to be down on him because I don't think we have any idea how to fully use him yet. And that's just so what the throwing over the middle thing. I'm hoping that we get proved wrong, and that if the Aaron Rodgers either he doesn't come or he shows up this week, so no more time is lost, and there can actually be some cohesion because that does matter. Then maybe throwing over the middle will be an option because I guarantee you, if Aaron Rodgers signs like 2 days before the season starts and Arthur Smith for the second year in a row has to randomly rewrite his offense, which he is not good at and has been proven not good at, which is another confusion part of the Steelers, then no, I don't think we're going to throw over the middle. Arthur Smith, I think, needs this time right now, and I don't know why, to get himself comfortable with the over the middle kind of throwing that we need to see. I was he should be Gronk 2.0. And the thing is, we have Darnell Washington, and he should also be there. A good example of how good Pat Fryermuth should be. I was playing Madden yesterday, and I created a tight end, so I didn't need Pat Fryermuth, and I put him on the trade block. Someone offered me Travis Hunter for him. So that's how good Madden thinks Pat Fryermuth is. So we are not using him correctly, if that is even close to true. So, yeah, my mismeaning Steeler fans all over. That is incredibly true. So Gabe Davis, to me, the theme for the entire night is about whether there is a missing piece for the Steelers, and if there is, who and all that. Gabe Davis is not that missing piece. If he does come in, he is going to be that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 kind of thing, unless he proves that the injury meant nothing and his time in Jacksonville meant nothing. But I agree with what Relic said a bit ago. I'm more excited about what Calvin Austin's next step could be. If the Calvin Austin trend continues, then Roman Wilson's missed year could set him up for a big year. He was moving pretty well. What's the? I took a screenshot of it so I would remember the other wide receiver that's been showing up and playing really, really well. Why can't I remember his name now? That's really going to frustrate me. If anybody, it's there. It is. Rock Taylor. Rock Taylor is another wide receiver that it could be. We have plenty of people. If you want a standout guy, Gabe Davis is not going to be that. So that's that part. So now this is a fun part because I want to break down a lot about the TJ contract part of it. And I want to start this entire thing off by saying breathe. That's the most important thing right now. There is no reason. There is not only no reason, there is no evidence that anybody in Pittsburgh, or if you're a Steelers fan outside of Pittsburgh, should be worried at all about TJ Watt with this. And it's not just because of who TJ Watt is or how the Steelers do business. It's because history is on our side. So first of all, the reason a lot of people are up in arms and worried about all of this, excuse me for just 1 second here. I'm going to drink a little bit of tea. Earl Grey, if I would be like to be sponsored by that, just any Earl Grey too. Myles Garrett signed a $160 million 4-year extension. And I'm sorry for the Browns fans in my family because this is going to be pretty. He signed it because he decided to bitch in public and say that he was going to be traded. And then whenever behind the scenes, apparently they're like, no, Miles, please don't go. Look at all this money we can give you. He came. He's like, ha, just kidding. I don't want to be traded from Cleveland. I love the factory of sadness. And they paid him $160 million over 4 years, resetting the market. Second that happened, a lot of people, I'm very proud not to be included in that. For the chat and everybody watching afterwards, let me know if you were included in this. People were suddenly really, really upset for TJ. They wanted TJ to join in. They were like, "Here, TJ, grab a pitchfork. We have to get you more money." And TJ was like, "No, I'm okay. We have to play football. I really don't give a fuck about how much Myles Garrett is paid." And it still seems to be projected on the TJ Watt that because it's like the Ovechkin and Crosby of the league as far as pass rushers go, that we have to hold these two up next to each other. One person does, the other person has to. So we're going to get this done in the way we do. And the way that TJ Watt does this is he's quiet about it. Now, I would love to be in TJ Watt's camp and or fly on the wall and find out what that whole Deuces post was. For anybody wondering, on his Instagram, he posted a picture, no explanation, of just him doing the Deuces post running off a field, and everybody thought, oh, it means TJ is leaving. He didn't leave. He's still here. Prior to the 21-21 season, TJ Watt wanted a new deal, and the Steelers were, doing their thing, negotiating as literally every other motherfucking team in the NFL does. Some much better than others, some worse than others. He decided he was going to hold in. Now, holdout is what most other players do. A lot of I'm trying to think in the chat if you can name me some people this specific year that are already holding out that are just it's Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson's holding out. I thought that was funnier than anything in the entire world that Deontay Johnson was holding out. So a hold in, TJ Watt's going to be practicing kind of next to his guys, but not with his guys. So he'll be doing his thing. And let's be honest, TJ Watt's the last guy on the entire roster that anybody should be worried about being prepared. So prior to the 2021 season, to give anybody who wasn't completely caught up on the situation, he did the hold in and it dragged on for a bit. And 3 days before the season, he signed a then record setting $112 million extension. And a lot of people in the NFL, there's a decent history of it where you're paid a great deal of money, especially a record setting amount of money. And all of a sudden, you don't produce. All of a sudden, you sit on your laurels and it's all about the money. No, TJ Watt went out and he had his record set in season. That's huge. And I mean that last line there. It's not an if, it's a when for TJ Watt, and he will be ready. And along the way, I think something that's making TJ Watt all the more comfortable with his current situation, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, is goodness gracious, there's a lot of depth here. And there's young guys, there's the Jack Sawyers, and then there's the Nick Herbigs, and even Alex Highsmith at times whenever he's there. There's guys who are going to get the snaps that TJ probably would get if he were there. So this is going to work for everybody involved. And if this TJ situation from here until the end or the beginning of the season is the worst part of our offseason, we are going to have a really good offseason. So it's just not concerning. But where does this specific thing, where does TJ Watt's contract, because I didn't just want to randomly talk about it. I wanted to talk about the missing piece and does that exist for the 2025 Steelers? Excuse me for 1 second. And when I look at it, I wanted to be as unbiased as I could because I didn't just want to say across the board, there is no missing piece for the Steelers or all this. If there is a missing piece for the Steelers, TJ Watt could be that. But as we're going to get to, what does that actually mean? I don't think it means the same thing it means in other teams. So let's jump. Look, a bunch of times gone by already. So in regards to finding out where that missing piece is, I wanted to look into what the biggest strengths and weaknesses were. For the chat right now, for the chat that's watching afterwards, feel free to leave the comments on this. But Relic brought up an excellent point that is nail on the head for this first point I brought up, where is wide receiver still the biggest weakness and the question mark on the team. And last year, I think we can all agree that 2024 wide receiver was a big problem. It really, really was. Not just the George Pickens antics and all of that, but the inability for anybody not named George Pickens to step up. Early in the season, there was the big worry. Oh my goodness, what if George Pickens does get injured? And then he got injured, and it was incredibly, incredibly dangerous. And then, and by dangerous, by the way, I mean against us, not for us. Then there was the Mike Williams thing where he caught one pass, and we were all bamboozled into believing it was an actual wide receiver. Was just a dumpster fire last year. But Relic is 100% correct. That is not just Calvin Austin. It's the Roman Wilsons. It's Ben Skoranek hiding back there, waiting to catch his 8 passes, all for first downs throughout the year, all at end of games, right where we need him to. So don't count him out. And there's Rock Taylor. And even if nothing else happens, if nothing else from this point to the beginning of the season happens, I don't understand how anybody can be upset with the wide receiver room, considering that DK Metcalf is a Pittsburgh Steeler. I'm still amazed and fascinated are the people who somehow manage to shrug that off on the way to whatever opinion they're making. It genuinely shocks me. Not only that, it's a lot of money. We shelled out for that dude like $120 million. And it's an investment, not just for us, but for him. So I do not think wide receiver is the biggest weakness on the team. And the next one is if the offensive line can become one of the biggest strengths. And I don't know if it could become one of the biggest strengths, but it definitely has to stop being a liability. And that was an issue last year, is that I don't think we needed it to be the best on the thing on the team. I don't think we needed to be the best in the NFL. We just needed Broderick Jones to stop doing random spins or give up on random plays or us moving the tackles back and forth and the amount of injuries that we had. So this year, I just want not okay. I was gonna say okay, and that seems that's not what I want. I want a average middle of the NFL ground kind of offensive line, because that means that gelling has happened and just consistency. The five guys that play together, let's play together for a good amount of time, because that's how you build up a lot of the best Steeler offensive lines throughout not just history but the last couple decades were because they played together consistently. Most of their games were together. And we just talked about this. If you're talking about strengths, I don't know how anybody can say, other than kicker, because Chris Boswell is the best kicker in the entire NFL. Hashtag Justin Tucker sucks. But our edge rushers, that and the linebacker position in general, but just edge rushers, we have TJ Watt, you have Alex Highsmith, you have Nick Herbig, and then you have Jack Sawyer, who was just on a national championship team, was the captain there. So you have that. That's just edge rushers. And that's not counting the fringe guys. But then you talk about the other linebackers. You have Patrick Queen and you have Peyton Wilson. I'm so out. Cole Holcomb is looking good again after a horrific, disastrous knee injury. The way you know that a guy's knee injury is bad is for a little while when you went to search for pictures of Cole Holcomb. The only picture you can find is of him being carted off after decimating his knee. That was it. Cole Holcomb, I'm so excited for him to be back on the field, not just because of what he brings, but because he makes the players around him better. He's a great defensive communicator. And as we heard from Minkah Fitzpatrick early on, that's a big, important part of the defense this year. So, as far as strengths and weaknesses, the Steelers, I think, are a much better team overall than they were last year. But with all of the strengths put together, I still don't feel there's any weakness that could be solved with that one piece enough to tip the scales and say, oh, the Steelers are suddenly not just a playoff team, but they're a deep playoff contender and maybe more. And I don't really feel about getting too much into the other thing about where the QB position ranks. I'm not the biggest. I don't think this is a quarterback room to lead us into the playoffs and destroy a team. I don't think it's a quarterback room where we're going to say that more times than not, the quarterback is why we ended up winning the game. We're going to say that about our defense, which is why we spend where we do, other than DK Metcalf. But what I will say is we drafted smart with Will Howard. If we are smart, and other than injury or necessity, he does not play at all this season, then we're going to be even more smarter. And I think the cherry on top of the entire quarterback situation before we finish off here is that an Aaron Rodgers less, so no Aaron Rodgers in 2025 is the best thing that can happen to the entire quarterback room. I genuinely feel that way, because if that doesn't happen, even if it's not true and they're just projecting it onto the situation, I think those three, the Mason Rudolph and Will Howard and Skylar Thompson, I think they'll come together. And there's going to be a fourth guy brought in, if not Aaron Rodgers, but I think those three are going to just get a boost from that and say, okay, we're believed in, we can do this, and they'll rah-rah themselves up. So we only have a little bit of time left here. And it's perfect timing, because I wanted to wrap up by answering the question that I started out at the beginning, on the general theme. which is, as far as missing pieces go, are the Steelers a team that is a missing piece away? If they are, what is that missing piece? And why is that missing piece the thing that could put them over the edge? So in the chat, if you want to put what you think about this, about are we a missing piece team? What is that missing piece to you? If there's one guy, I'm not even kidding. Pick anybody. A salary caps don't matter. Willingness to trade doesn't matter. If there's one person out there in the NFL ether that is that one missing piece that it brought to this specific Steeler roster, not with Aaron Rodgers, the roster that exists today, and would suddenly morph them into a Super Bowl contender, I'm fascinated to hear that argument. Genuinely. You're not no mockery, nothing. I'm genuinely fascinated. But I've been saying this, and I'm going to keep saying this quite a bit. The Steelers are not one piece away. I don't think that's insulting to say. I don't think that's treasonous to say, if you want to put it that way. As far as loyalty to an NFL football team, I think that's being very realistic. This team has a ceiling on it. I went over as many different schedules and as many different conglomerations as I could about what it was going to look like, and I kept coming up 9-8, maybe 10-7, but anything higher than that, I had to justify why certain games were going the way. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, maybe we'll just happen to have an upset, and there was no logic behind that. So the ceiling for the Steelers is playoff, just berth, and then maybe a win, squeaking out a win. More likely than not, if that win does occur by anything that more than the skin of their teeth, similar to the Cincinnati Bengals committing the 2 penalties at the end of the playoff game to pretty much hand the Steelers a win, unfortunately ending Antonio Brown's career. Something like that would have to happen in the playoffs for the Steelers to really get to the next round, but not further than that. So if that's the height of your team, you're not one piece away. So when you start having to say, well, okay, well, this guy, but you also have to have this, and there's this guy, you're not a piece away. But I did say that if there was anything close to that piece, TJ Watt would be there. If you need any evidence other than the playoff game against Kansas City, where TJ Watt did everything he possibly fucking could to will the team to a win, including scoring the first touchdown himself, TJ Watt could absolutely be that piece. If that Cinderella story happens, you will be talking about the moments that TJ Watt changed massive games. But the other one is DK Metcalf. And the investment on both sides, because it's not just the Steelers investing a lot of money in DK Metcalf. It's DK Metcalf saying, I want to be here for the long haul. I just don't want you to pay me a whole chunk of money just for 1 year to see how it goes. I want to be here through this year. I want to be here through what most likely will be the drafting of the quarterback of the future, so to say, next year, and for the 2 years after that. That's what he wants to be, a real investment on both sides with real money involved. And I'm so excited when football starts to count in any capacity again, even if it's just the preseason snaps that we see these guys take. What DK Metcalf's going to bring, people are going to suddenly realize what a real NFL wide receiver one is, not just someone who keeps saying that he is without fully backing it up. So yeah, I know that was a slam against Pickens, so sorry. I'm sure he's lost some people. But the more important thing, and this last part to me is the most important part of this whole thing. By the Steelers not acting like they are a one piece away team, they are setting their future selves up for the kind of success that will get them to that one piece away. Where other free agents will look and they'll say, hey, wait a second. If I go to the Steelers, I could be that thing that could put them over the edge. Because right now, DK Metcalf had to invest in the future of the team and where he saw them going, not where they are right now. Even if he says that, which I'm sure he did, he's going to say the right things and all that, but it didn't come to win a Super Bowl with the Steelers in 2025. That's just honest, and I like I said, I don't think it's treacherous or treasonous to say that. So the summary of the evening is that the Steelers are not one piece away. But that doesn't mean that you can't go out and enjoy the hell out of the season because longevity, as far as I see it, looking multiple years ahead, it it helps because right now there's a lot of Steeler fans that want to win a Super Bowl every single year, and that's the only level of success that there is. There's no other ceiling. If it's not a Super Bowl, if we didn't do that, then it's a devastating season and it's a complete loss. And I don't feel that's true. This there's many ways that this year can be a success, and just thought that could be a really good segment for an upcoming thing. So in either the chat or if you want to tag me on either Facebook or Twitter and let me know if you'd be interested in that as a subject about what success would look like in regards to the Steelers in 2025, that could be definitely interesting. But in summary, we're excited to see what Calvin Austin does. No one cares about Aaron Rodgers. But to a little OTA thing to finish off the evening. The a big thing that they're doing, especially with the running backs and especially with rookie running back Caleb Johnson, is ball protection and pass protection drills. Incredibly important on both sides, and apparently they're continuing to do them more often than just usual. They're just drilling over and over, which I loved in the first place. And then I saw another Minka Fitzpatrick thing. I saw that Minka Fitzpatrick apparently dropped an interception during a 7-on-7 and kept himself after to do some work on the jug machine. There's leadership there that I don't think was there last year. Or if it was there, I don't think the team was established enough in its either new identity or the switchover from the other leaders, guys that were there to open up in the way they are this year, like with the way Darius Slay is doing it with Minka Fitzpatrick. I'm really excited once training camp actually begins to see the kind of brotherhood and gelling this team can do. And God, if Aaron Rodgers isn't here by Friday and Mark Cabali has to eat his words, which by the way, he's wearing a hat that says TJ every single day until TJ signs. And I'm not coming after Cabal. I just think it's a weird thing. If you're 100% sure, like he said that TJ is going to get signed, that Aaron Rodgers is coming. I'm not sure why he would do that other than a countdown, but it's a nice hat. So other than that, so we'll take a quick comment here before we go. Mother says that she agrees that we are a few years out from a championship. We are moving in the right direction. The longer that we either wait for Aaron Rodgers or if we eventually don't get him, which I hope, then that would be another right direction move because I think we've invested a good amount in this particular season. The investment in Darius Slay was a big one, and the draft investment and the way we did that, those were big investments and showed the direction the team is going. Any more investment, I think, is just window dressing. It's taking an incredibly dilapidated house, throwing a bucket of paint on it, and saying, "Well, that looks good. That was a good use of paint." It's no use. So save all of that. Not just the money or the investment like monetarily, but the emotional investment in the plan. Save that. Save that for next year. We can figure all that out. So I'd like to thank every single person that did join. Thank you to everybody who will join after this. LeeAnn will be back next week. We are going to have a surprise guest join us. Hopefully next week will be the interview. If not, then at the week after. Not going to announce it yet, but I am very excited about that. If you enjoyed tonight, make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you follow. We're trying to break 50 subscribers here soon. We're currently at 20. So we got to keep that up because all the subscribers, once we get to a certain amount, maybe we could do a fun giveaway or something. Or, maybe, you could get a picture of Courage, my cat, wearing a Steelers jersey. Whatever works for you guys. But I really appreciate all you guys showing up for me holding the fort down today, and to find out as pretty much everything tonight was pertaining to whether the Pittsburgh Steelers actually are a giveaway. I didn't think about that before, but just small things. So I'm thinking what we get to a certain milestone, but the first milestone I want to get to is once we hit that 50 point, then we can start talking about that. So we're 30 away. I guarantee people out there watching right now, at least 30 people. If all the people out there told all the 30 people, then it'd be a lot more. So I'm just saying the math works out to have a lot of subscribers very quickly if everybody just does that. Chain letters were a thing before. We could bring it back. Steel City Huddle, hashtag chain letters. It'll be great. So is there a missing piece for the 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers? No, there is not. That is how that ends there. So I'd like to thank everybody for spending their Tuesday evening with me. Not as many cats as I thought there would be, but maybe the consistent soothing sound on my voice meant they're sleeping somewhere, or I'm going to find vomit in the corner. And that's how I'm going to leave you guys. So go Steelers, and I hope everybody has a wonderful week. We will see you next Tuesday. Unless something incredible happens and Aaron Rodgers signs, because I guarantee that happens, you're going to see a special from us. Everybody have a great night.
LeeAnn and Zach would like to thank you for tuning in to the Steel City Huddle podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a thing.